Peace. This is the Ask Your Old Head podcast with Justice Raji. I'm here with my brother, the progenitor of the pedigree, my main man, I'm Majestic.
Peace, peace, peace. So I just want to say, first and foremost, it's an honor to be back on the podcast. We started out early with this thing when we was in Venice. We was on the beach, and it's an honor to be back on, just acknowledging all the people you've interviewed and the great things you're doing and the way you're projecting the issues and values and principles that people really need at this time. And I would be remiss if I didn't say I'm with none other than my son, Messiah, our culture beneficent. You want to say peace? You want to say peace real fast?
Peace, people. This is the internet. We are on live on the internet. I am Messiah, Culture Beneficent Allah, which means great human leader, and we are going to hear from Uncle Justice, and my father. I'm Majestic, and they're both great speakers. They've both speaked in speech before, and this shall go well. So on the internet, let's see what we can rank up and unlock. Peace.
Peace to the God.
So you know what I mean? My son had his first time on the internet, so he was trying to do that. So, it's an honor. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Well, I think we actually covered the question I always forget, but then remember, in terms of who you want to give a shout out to, I'm going to give a shout out to my nephew. You know what I'm saying? Representing the family. It's a beautiful weekend here. So
just real quick, also, let me give a shout out to Azani, our queen, junior year at American, doing amazing work, Dean's List again. And then also to Ahmadina, doing amazing stuff. She's actually heading an event and a show in Pittsburgh right now, so I want to give a shout out.
All right, peace. So we're gonna get right into it. So can you give me just a standard or a principle that you try to hold yourself to as you move through the world? I'm Majestic.
It's easy to say integrity, but integrity is like a really intangible idea, right? Integrity, it means different things to different people. Mm-hmm. So integrity is something that obviously is a principle I advocate, but more is actually loyalty. And so in my particular space, there are varying degrees of loyalty that you have to possess, right? There's loyalty to family. There's loyalty to principle. There's loyalty to, if you're in an administration, there's loyalty to that. And sometimes those all look different, right? Sometimes they're not all, there's binds and limitations to them. But I would say a value right now that I'm upholding and really trying to think about is that. And also, leadership is not a value per se, but, and maybe we'll go into this a little later, it's also about how are you really being thoughtful around engaging other people, around being your best and their best, so that the sum is greater than the whole of the parts.
That's peace. Do you think? What do you think is that people get wrong about integrity?
Because it can be a moving target. Mm-hmm. Integrity is like one of those things that, it's like the Supreme Court justice once said about pornography. Like, you can't tell this, but everybody knows it. Mm-hmm. And so integrity of different people is different things. Sometimes their idea of integrity is misplaced elitism. Their idea of what it means for them to have integrity is like, well, is it really integrity, or is it you just thinking that you're better than people so that you present certain stuff? And that's not, is it really integrity? Right. And is it integrity when people ask you to go against your values? Or is integrity when you advocate your values and you stand on your values and you don't change them? So I just find that sometimes we get that idea. People use that as kind of like a sword over other people's heads, the sword of integrity.
Right. So it's not that they use it actually to activate or exist it being a person that has integrity as much as as a bludgeon.
Bludgeon over other people's actions based on people coming from way different perspectives, right? There's different cultural perspectives of integrity. There's different social perspectives. There's different age-appropriate perspectives of integrity. Yeah. What a 25-year-old thinks is integrity is way different than what a 65-year-old thinks is integrity right now.
All right. Is there anything that you would want to share that you think helps one with developing a more healthy concept around integrity, or something you would want to point to?
Knowledge and awareness. Because I think the knowledge of what you're dealing with and the awareness of the world you're in, it really helps with your integrity. Because, and then we say knowledge, awareness, and I would say the third is understanding. Like, the knowledge of what you're dealing with has to be there. The awareness of the situation, and then the understanding finally of like how do I need to deal with it, and then that defines how you have to express your integrity in that situation. And again, to your point, it's more of an affirmation than a bludgeon. To me, integrity is still leading by example. Yeah. Now, sometimes it ends up like a bludgeon and a whistleblower suit or whatever have you. But even sometimes with that, you got to be careful because people will use this idea of a whistleblower. And again, if it's illegal activity or untoward activity, you should tell at all times.
Yes, sir.
I want that on the record.
Yes, sir.
However, the other thing, once again, because it's a moving target in the times that we're in, you also got to make sure that people are engaging in using that as a way to make us all better.
Yeah. I think, I'm very sensitive these days to casting aspersions of people, and especially accusing them of not having integrity, because I feel it's something we can be very comfortable just going, oh, he has no integrity, right? Without knowing the context and circumstances around which one made a decision. Because they made a decision in honor of other rules that we're not aware of, right?
And it happens, all the time in my particular field. People will talk about other people's integrity. So people will say, well, if you're in the administration or if you're in government, you don't have integrity. And it's the craziest thing in the world. Like, it's the idea that anyone that chose to do service in that way. So, for example, if someone chose to do service in the context of nonprofits, everyone says that they are an angel. They're a saint. If someone chooses to actually be in, like according to a city charter, like our city charter is about the health, safety, and welfare of people in Pittsburgh. So if you aspire to do that through the government, people say they will cast aspersions about your integrity by the very nature of working in government, where if you work in nonprofits, AKA you work based on how money has been washed through our tax system, you actually have a higher degree of integrity.
Right. Well, I always thought that to be dealt with an assumption about the intentions, and also our, and I don't enjoy the idea when people be like, well, the government, because I'm like, which government, which agency, which part of the government, which specific person are you saying did this, right? Because we create this boogeyman. Right, and we don't appreciate the reality that there's a whole lot going on here, and also that we got to do something. We have to have some entity by which we can try to funnel the energy of the masses into some outcomes. Again,
and about the health, safety, and welfare. Now, if someone has a conversation or debating is a particular person or group of people acting in the health, safety, and welfare for the citizens, that's a way different conversation. Yeah. Right? Because that brings to bear your ideas about the role of government, which then brings to bear your idea about America, about democracy, about republics, about power. That's a whole different conversation if you wanted to have a dialogue and say, well, are you acting in that interest? Versus, to your point, the government. And again, we're in a time where from the right and the left, no one has quote-unquote faith in government. But it really just reflects a lack of civic engagement, civic entrepreneurship, that you have faith in government because you don't have faith in the realm of how people engage with each other. So,
all right, peace. That's heavy. So, do you think one more question on this thread, then we'll move on? Do you feel is there a roadmap where one could maybe start develop a different, if one doesn't believe that, integrity is something that should exist as a part of either, civic action in government, any government entity, is there a channel by which you would suggest one maybe get some exposure to maybe think differently?
Build power. Because the reality of it is the governments that exist because one more person voted for a person than the other people.
All right.
Now, don't get me wrong. Then the political calculus and gets way more complicated from there.
Yeah, no,
but that is actually in America, except for presidential elections, the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
One more person voted for someone than the other person.
All right.
So the key is, if you really, whatever your vantage point on integrity, how do you build power to shift and create the integrity in people that you may not think you see? But again, that's an onus, right? That's a civic responsibility.
Yeah.
To not only vote and do your civic duty, but to build power around your ideas and find other people who think alike you and share ideas, and then they influence systems that then in turn bring about what you would like to see, acknowledging that what you would like to see can't always happen in government in the manner that you think. So again, the integrity, you have to look at the parameters around your perspective of someone else's integrity.
Word. Peace. So, relationships, broadly defined, is there something that you would want to share around what you've learned to do differently that maybe you didn't do as well as a younger man?
So, you know what? That's the thing. So my father told me and showed me that relationships are everything growing up. But I'll say one of the things that black men have to really deal with is the context of male to male relationships, male to female relationships that are not in a romantic sense, in a platonic sense, and then also cross-racial relationships as it pertains to the idea of how you think about yourself and the idea of manhood from the lens of being a black man in America this day and time. I didn't catch on to the way to really understand that until 32. If a young man could learn it at 15 or 16, he can change his life and other people's lives.
All right.
So relationships was always, again, they're always done, when you're in the hood, it's always done through the context of who can harm me or who's my crew. So who do I like or who don't I like? Right? It's either this whole, right, on or off switch.
Yeah.
Not relationships for a variety of reasons. It's either I mess with him or I don't mess with him. You see what I'm saying? Dysfunctional. So you learn that. Then later, depending on what school you go to, what situations, it's hard for people to have male-female relationships that are quality, that are platonic. Because colleges, high schools, and all that, and even sometimes the hood, it frames everything like you can't have quality relationships with women if you don't like them, which is horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredibly damaging.
Incredibly damaging to the psyche, even of the idea that the only person you can talk to is the person that you want to be in a relationship with or do something with. And we carry that for years. You don't build quality relationships with people that you don't like. Even if they're skilled, even if they're intelligent, even if they are on fire.
Right, you go.
And then as a cross, then it goes deeper. If that person is in a relationship, the male that she's in a relationship may not want you to be friends with her because he's caught up in the idea that you cannot be platonic with someone and be really close.
You can't develop lasting and trusting
You
bonds.
can't trusting bonds beyond like sex and romanticism,
Yeah.
which is absolutely to your point, is damaging to building networks. My father told me, in rather crude terms, something way different, but he actually told me this from a child, that you have to develop, he showed me, you have to develop quality and great and lasting and trusting relationships with women who you were not romantically involved in. But we just learned that way too late.
Yeah.
So I would say that's one of the biggest lessons about relationships is you have to be able to have quality, trusting relationships with other men without it being anything that kind of that the macho thing, the cool pose, as they say.
Yeah.
You have to have that quality relationships with trusting and lasting relationships with women who you were not romantically involved with, and even trusting relationships with maybe their mate if that person has not evolved to the place of understanding this. And you have to have trusting and lasting relationships with people outside of your race and outside of your background, because that's when opportunities can emerge.
Is there any? Well, I'll just say, you know me, and I've been a long advocate of one of the most important things I learned young was at some point you got to decide every woman is not for you, even if she's really cool. Even if she's like, man, she's amazing, she's really cool, she's not for you, and just turn it off, B. Like, yo, turn it off. It doesn't.
But there's the thing. Goes back to this thing I was saying about black males and growing up. We're never taught to turn it off. There's never a dialogue about turning it off. From the age that you can remember, your framings of I like her, I don't like her. She might can be this, not. That's a young lady who I'm going to have a lasting, trusting, personal relationship with. Who tells an 8-year-old that?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Who tells a 12-year-old that? We don't even have that dialogue. So, yes, it's the thing of every woman is not for you, and then going forward, everyone is not to be seen as someone that could be for you, because that spurs behavior, right? That frames behavior that person exists to fulfill something for you.
Right. They have no agency in their own existence.
Their only agency is, could we do something? Oh, we can't? Okay, well, let me go find someone that I could do something with, because that's what women exist around.
Yeah. That's why. That's not a good thing. And
I mean, and so even with a young child, with a young man, you learn to see like, wait, the way we're framing these relationships are crazy. And it even goes to, well, me and this girl fight, so I don't like her, but me and the other girl don't fight, so I do like her.
Right.
This mannequin,
Yeah.
yes or no thing.
Yeah. Man, I think that the, and I scanning the current, kind of social media space and the conversation sometimes, we don't always acknowledge sort of the way we reinforce an unhealthy perspective. You know what I mean? And like the various forms of like, we got the Me Too reality as it is happening right now. Where, a lot of women are sharing their experiences. You know what I mean? That they've had in the workplace, and I'm always shocked when men just sort of don't really, even though it's this public, that like they don't really kind of get what we're really talking about. You know what I mean? And realize the idea like, yo, when you go to work, ain't nobody trying to get at you. And like if every day you go to work, it's like somebody like trying to get at you. Like, hey, you want to get a milk? You want to get a coffee? You want to get this? You want to do that? Oh, really? Do you like this movie? You want to see this movie? Like, I don't think men grasp like.
And when I start grasping it, and to be honest, on this podcast, I don't want to come across the wrong way, that when at work, women start doing that to me. And I was just like, wait, I didn't come here for you to tell me how my hair looked today. Right? Like, I didn't come here for you to tell me how my suit looked.
Yeah.
Like, because that is perceived.
All right.
Like, it's supposed to be like, you look really nice today. And I still say thank you. I really appreciate it. But I thought about it. If I was saying that to people every day,
Yeah, not good.
it would be way different, right? And so I thought, you look really nice. Your hair is really nice.
Yeah.
Wait. And so I think men don't get it because a lot of men that do that don't get those compliments. And then two, again, they've been brought up in a space that the world has been framed for. This is my space, unless someone tells me it's not.
Yeah.
Versus, this is spaces where people come to add value to society however we see fit.
Yeah. And I think, even just to add some definition to what you shared, as a person who I can attest, you're a sharp dresser. You know what I mean? And I live in Portland, where no one puts too much effort into trying to be sharp. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to put it on record, and y'all can be in your feelings if you want to.
It could be, you're the Pacific Northwest, man. I think people start being really utilitarian. That's my perspective.
I suppose. But sometimes, man, like, I really be like, shout out to my man Sam. Like, put on a appropriate suit. Act like this meeting meant something different than the last one. Every once in a while. Don't be all the time. Right? So I can see where you could move through the world, especially as a man, and in a society where often men can just show up however they show up. When you really show up, like, you actually put some thought into what you got on, people are like, whoa, they take notice, right? So it's really coming from a pure space. Right? So that part is cool. Is when you turn that around and realize that, there's a lot of people that just giving compliments with no healthy motive. You know what I'm saying?
No,
because compliments with the straight butter up.
Because we have received from society this idea that if you press a line, things will come from it. And sometimes things do. And willfully, in the best case scenario, it is totally from both parties something they want to be a part of.
Yeah.
But we also know through power relations, stressors at work, sexism, patriarchy, toxic masculinity, there's a whole bunch of stuff people could feel like, oh, well, I don't really like him, but that's my boss or that's my supervisor.
Right.
Or I had a situation at work where a young lady, where a young man who was thinking about coming to the administration, like the young lady who was working for the administration, and he had shot his shot in different ways, and the young lady didn't respond. He actually started going to other people, asking them, like, what's up with your girl?
Ooh.
Going up to her friends, calling her friends, asking them, what's up with your girl? Like, why doesn't she like me? And so what's bad is, now I'm going to be frank about this, in government, you laugh that stuff off. Because there's so much crazier stuff that happens in government, as we see with different elected officials. Mm-hmm. You almost laugh an offense like that and just charge that to the game. Even though you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But that is the least of what women have to deal with.
All right.
In government.
Yeah.
So again, going back to relationships, a lot of people, you don't know how to build quality ones. Mm-hmm. And then, not to go too deep into this, but the pursuit of power leads people to make decisions or leads people to engage in behaviors and attitudes that are totally damaging to building quality relationships.
Yeah. And I think I would say, there's things that I would have never heard or never learned if I didn't really learn how to sit with women who I otherwise would have wanted to hopefully transition outside of this, this whole concept where people be, I'm in the friend zone. You know what I'm saying? Friend zone, I'm going to tell you, put this on tape. Friend zone is for suckers that don't express themselves. If you like somebody, tell them you like them from the start. Give them a chance to choose. They say no, guess what? Party's over, playboy.
But see, it's the shy guy. It's the wrong way to look at the 5 heartbeats. So it's like, well, especially in situations where the perception is, well, her man is like this. Like LL talked about that stuff in songs for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, so your man like this.
Yeah.
But I'm like this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just lay low.
I'm gonna be right here.
While you recognize who I am.
Yeah.
So it gave credence to a behavior.
Yeah, it's whack.
But again, it also spoke of our agency. If a woman sees she's in a bad situation, and if she sees a good situation, you should generally assume that she has the agency and the intelligence to make the decision.
Yes, sir.
And it's not up to you
Right. It's
to
not
be bringing over General Tso's tofu late at night. Because I'm a plant-based. I'm with that plant-based pedigree.
Oh, goodness.
Right? I'm with that plant-based base. So
sir.
it's not to you to be bringing over wine and, oyster mushrooms late at night saying, hey, I know you didn't eat.
I know you're going through some things.
Yeah, I know you're going to do some things. Some people call that soft shoe macking.
Yeah.
And some people call it struggle macking.
Yeah. I call that conduct unbecoming.
You're struggle macking, man.
Cut that out.
Let that woman make a call. If you keeping it super funky, you don't have to earn her thing about being there because this other dude wasn't. You just should be who you are and let that woman be where she needs to be. Make her decisions. Again, you can rob people of agency without clarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, that's a divine culture move. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta, and again, this is the flip side of talking about Messiah, talking about Azani being a 21-year-old young lady. That's the other part of it. Because you really frame it like, how do you want someone to talk to your child? Mm-hmm. And it ain't about being who I want that person to be. It's about being a person that allows the other person to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And to show up as themselves and show up,
right,
unafraid, or show up where they feel they, always the, and I said, the thing I think, maybe to bring close to a close on this topic is just that men often struggle with understanding what it means when the perception of your power affects the decision making of those who feel subject to your power. All right. So whether you recognize you have this power or this influence, if someone believes that you have it and they have good reason to believe so, that they will make decisions that may not be healthy or in their own best mental and physical health to get through the situation, where you may be sitting there thinking, I'm just, I'm out here, I'm just playing the game the way I'm playing it, or I'm the man or whatever. And it's like, nah, you actually are, you are violating, you're undermining the integrity of what it is we say we about, or what you're trying to do, or who you say you are.
Or listen, or who you should be. And, we have a term, growing up with me and Justice did, like, I don't blame you, I blame your old head. Because sometimes, going back to this title, ask your old head, you need to ask someone. You need to have some context for behavior. And you need to have someone that has some wisdom and experience and some success in interacting with people to have a rational conversation with them about behavior. Now, I don't want to go off into that whole other concept about how so many men, and not just black men or Latinx men or white men or Asian men, just men across the board. So many men don't have people around men, specifically men, that can impart wisdom that has multiple dimensions. And to go even deeper, the idea that your old head is 3 years older than you. That means you're 16 and your old head is 19.
Yeah, that ain't.
Or you're 19, your old head is 22. What did he only saw a couple things that you ain't seen?
Yeah.
So what's happening is there's no distance. But like I said, that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah.
An important ball of wax.
Yes.
Yeah. Word. Thank you. So, what's really important for you right now in your world?
So, owing to my work, what's really important to me right now is how institutions conspire to help people. Generally speaking, in America, institutions have conspired to hurt black people. You can show a couple bright spots in that history otherwise, but generally, institutions have jammed up black people. Black people, brown people, terminologies that you choose to use, whatever ones that are relevant. And institutions have jammed up poor people across the board without going across race. Even if poor white people didn't know, they were jammed up until a couple years ago. But I'll also say I think it's important to remember Ross Perot ran as an independent 24 years ago, 26 years ago, and cut into Bush's people.
And he didn't have to do the whole racial piece. He just was like, look, they're taking your money.
Just populism.
Yeah.
All he did was populism. We don't talk about the fact that literally 26 years ago someone ran besides the racial broadsides and insanity as Donald Trump. A rich person from a state who didn't need no one's money ran for president 26 years ago. So this whole populist thing didn't come from nowhere. Yeah. But we'll leave that alone.
Yes.
So, but my point is, like, institutions have conspired to hurt people. Institutions should conspire to help people. So what's important to me is that people really think about what does it mean for institutions. That could be your colleges. That could be your fraternities, sororities. That could be your churches. That could be any institution. That could be the ones you vote for, local, county, state, federal government. How do institutions help people? Because there are a lot of people who have given up or find themselves in situations where they can't even get their civic capital. And who acts on behalf of those people? This might be a time for another podcast too, but I also think about the user experience of how you wake up in the morning. I often thought about how I woke up in the morning as a kid. And all the stuff I seen in the morning was all according to some stuff that came before me and was decided by people who I didn't know. But it defined my life. What time the train came, what route I walked, when the bus came, what houses had what people in them, what stores were right by the train. Those are all institutional decisions. And they all impact kids and adults every day. And from a tech perspective, it's your user experience. And your user experience is everything. It depends on if you come back and use the thing again.
Yeah. Your assumptions and everything about how you think. And then it feeds to what you think was supposed to happen. So if you had a negative experience, then obviously this was the intended result.
And it's going to make you make a decision about not being in that place. If someone listens to your podcast on a system that does not give them easy toggle room, they may not use that no more. I ain't giving no particular way to get this credibility because until they cut him a check, I ain't doing that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Cut him a check. Yeah. But until they do, doesn't matter what system, but if your system doesn't help you, I'll go use another system. If I go through a particular portal and I don't like the interface, I use another one. Yeah. Just think about people's user experience growing up in America.
Right. I know it's only what you going well, you either go down the block to the left or you go around the other block back to the round to make a right to get back to the same spot.
You either make a left or three rights.
Right. You ain't got no other
And
choices.
think about how kids every day have to make a decision. Do you make a left or three rights, man? Because you know what? I'm not walking by this house.
Yeah.
But this house is this house because of the systemic stuff that impacted this family, and you don't want to walk by these people's houses.
Yeah. There's nothing more terrifying than that house with the dog that the people don't ever take care of the dog. And you could I still to this day, I hear the ching-a-ling-ling-ling, and I start looking around man. Because there was houses where you hear ding-ling-ling-ling. The dog is not on the leash. and he's coming at you.
You don't know the dog coming out. You know the mug coming out. You don't know what you don't know what's happening in front. But if a 9-year-old or 10-year-old is going to get on the bus or they getting on a train, that is not what they need to see waking up in the morning. And I've become a really strident about that now. Kids should not see stuff in the morning that they have to unpack with their friends by the time they get to school.
Yeah.
Besides the fact they shouldn't eat honey buns like I did, and ho-hos and drink Arizona iced tea. You better cut him a check. Yeah. But like, I did say that. But like,
that's cool.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that. But that's a whole other thing. But it's a user experience again, and that's why that matters to me is because the user experience around neighborhoods and cities frames who comes and who stays. Mm-hmm. And that matters. That matters who comes to our neighborhoods, who leaves our neighborhoods, and who feels like their city belongs to them.
Mm. So that leads me to a question. And I'm going to try to navigate this question in a way that gives you fair opportunity to answer it without... so we're just going to go for this. So we can say in this age that the concept of living in the city, right, has returned to being an in vogue concept. You know what I mean? I would say when we were children, living in the city was in our community was either, depending on your circumstance or where you were aligned and what city you're from, was either a look, where am I going to go, right? Or, well, I can maybe live in this city, or I can live in this city that's slightly different, or this suburb that's adjacent to this city. You know what I mean? That might be well fitting for me. But people who maybe did not frequent the city in the 80s, their children love the city. In the 2010s.
That's a very diplomatic way to say that.
They're very in the cities.
Right? They're very in the city because they grew up with an experience that was totally scrubbed. Mm. And then, but here's the racial and class implications of this conversation. Right. So, if you grow up in a city, the trains don't come on time, the buses don't work, you don't pick up trash, violence runs abound, the user experience sucks. Mm. Why do you assume that person will return back to that place? Mm. You have given them no quality public goods, right? Give them no quality user interface or user experience. In turn, there's a population of people who lived in their own kind of scrubbed reality and not cool but not cool reality. Once they came of age, because from their families who left and took their wealth out of the city to the suburbs, subsidized by the federal government. We should always remember that. Yeah. Federal government, hey, listen, people live in the suburbs. Listen, I've been in Just House. I love it. The federal government subsidizes wealth built outside cities, created huge highways. It made people rich. And black folks, by the time we figured it out, we was the last ones to figure it out. So we didn't get the money that everybody got anyway. Yeah. So even when we moved to the suburbs, we never really got rich.
Yeah, we never got.
You can have a quality of life, but you didn't make no money.
Yeah, you didn't make a come up on that.
Between the GI Bill and the federal government building highways, you created wealth where there was none. From a street perspective, from the ghetto perspective, it was the honey bun money run. Mm. And we didn't get nothing out of it.
Yes, sir.
So I'll say that. So people had a scrubbed experience in an area where you created wealth. They go to colleges, and most quality colleges, generally speaking, are in cities. Mm-hmm. I mean, outside of Wellesley's and, stuff in Massachusetts. For outside of stuff in Massachusetts and most of the high quality schools you think about exist in cities. East Coast, West, doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. You could argue about Stanford, but Berkeley, UCLA, right? On the West Coast, not to knock nobody else's colleges, but think about Harvard adjacent, right? MITs, NYUs, right? Penn, like Dartmouth. All those are adjacent. Brown and Providence.
Yeah.
All those are adjacent. Princeton in a kind of like an urbanish area.
Yeah.
So you send people who built the wealth to school, back to schools in the cities, and they fall in love.
Yeah.
They don't want to leave, and they take their money and they bring the money with them. And then cities figure this out and say, "Oh man, well maybe we should change neighborhoods." So then living in the city and being urban, where being urban was like, well, you're urban. Okay, you're black or brown. Or inner city.
You're spicy.
Spicy. Super spicy. Shout out.
Shout out.
So what my challenge is right now is, and I'm going to say this too, black people following this logic do the same thing as some white folks. Mm-hmm. They come back in the cities. They want to come to certain cities. They find themselves in Charlotte, find themselves in Atlanta, find themselves in D.C., Richmond. They want to experience the city in a certain way.
All right.
So they cluster. Living in the city cannot be divorced from the stuff that happened to those who were less fortunate. And that's the crux of what I want to say about that, is it cannot be divorced for what happened to people when you were not there. So you may not like the person who lives on your block. You may not like the corner store. The corner store exists because of stuff that your family got away from. And you can't erase it because you're willing to pay $1,500 a month.
Right.
Or $2,000 a month.
You don't stand in a position where it is appropriate for you to make judgments about the reasoning as to why this exists, because you weren't there.
Especially when you benefit, and then when you come back and it's low rent, and then you benefit from being there.
Oh yeah.
And then they got tax, and then whoever built your apartment got tax benefits to build your apartment, and tax abatements.
They got a break to put it in there.
Again, federal government, the hand that keeps on giving. So that is the biggest thing about living in the city. Do not listen. It's rough, but do not look at the situation and think that you can talk about what it means for them people to be there without understanding the role of the federal government and the complicity of local, state, and federal governments in creating neighborhoods and then getting rid of people.
As I like to say, it ain't just a local issue.
Listen, you wait long enough, you'll find the federal government's complicit
in
a lot of it.
Yeah, man. That's peace. So, we have ran the constructive gambit of my primary questions. I'll give you the option.
I know. Listen. I just appreciate that you let me be on this long. Like, you know what I'm saying?
You know
what I mean?
Look, man, I won't even get into it. I'll go long if you let me.
Listen,
super spicy.
Super spicy.
You know what I mean? So let me ask you this. We can pivot into a couple of things, or we can start moving towards a close.
Listen, let's talk. I'm present.
Related to the importance of going to cities, because as I would tell people if they ask me, you're a fine connoisseur of the black experience. Everywhere we go, we go, and not on a ruin porn. Actually, this might be a good point. Can you give folks a definition of ruin porn?
So ruin porn is when people want to talk about situations that they don't want to solve. They like looking at problems. And they like experiencing what comes from situations that they don't want to solve. You like music, you like food, you like culture from places that those were indicative of responses to struggle. Responses, again, to complicity of a variety of institutions impacting people negatively. And then you want to go there. It's one of my main issues with the idea of trap girls love yoga. Or trap girls like this. Or pretty girls like trap music.
Yeah.
Dog, that's trap music. For people who have been so isolated, they had to stand in an abandoned house and wait for people who are addicts to find, scrounge, or steal money to bring them money for drugs.
Right.
And give them that. And then what do they listen to? What's the culture that comes out of that? And when you say pretty girls like trap music, there's some class and intra-racial stuff that you got to pull out of that one.
That needs to be unpacked, deconstructed.
That is, or trap. They said trap yoga. What trap got to do with yoga?
Right.
I know what the trap is.
Yeah.
I don't know what yoga is.
Yeah. I don't know.
And they're not really connected.
I don't know how that. I don't even know how that works.
But ruin porn is about when people love to talk about these situations that they have no interest in changing. So I have learned that people love to talk. There's a lot of people who make money off of ruin porn. It's a lot of government agencies, a lot of nonprofit agencies, a lot of people in the neighborhoods that make money off of ruin porn. When people write their grants, they talk about how this neighborhood is the most disconnected neighborhood, and 40% of people can't read, 50% unemployment.
I thought something. Speaking to that, at the Policy Link Summit, what's the brother? The brother from Be Me, and the challenge he issued, the people in the room was, speak to your clients and the people you work with in the language that you be writing about them and them grants. You know what I mean? Which we would not do. You know what I mean?
Talk to that man like you talk to him. Talk to him in a deficit model.
Yeah.
Tell him he ain't shit. Tell him that without you doing this program, there's no way that they'll survive.
No way you gonna make it.
There's no way you gonna make it.
I'm your only hope.
Right. You tell him that.
Yeah. Would never do that. That is true.
We'll never do it. Because the thing is, and this is the unpopular thing I'm about to say.
Okay.
I've only said this like 2 or 3 times.
That's it. We
do got to check how we created this infrastructure of supplementing things that families should do. We've created a $1 billion industry off of being like, hey, Junior. Hey, little Washeen. What you want to do when you grow up? Hey, man, I'm going to spend 2 hours with you. What? The best indicator, all research says, the best indicator of anybody going to college is if someone in your family went to college.
Yep.
It ain't the public school, the charter school, the private school.
Yep. Somebody else in your family.
Someone else in your family went there to set up the play for you to go.
Yeah.
There's always a first person that went to college. Fine. But that's not the reason that various generations go to college.
Yeah. And just so it doesn't get lost, the indicator that you will complete college is not around rigor and challenge. It's around, do you have the funding to get to the end? All that, it's so challenging. We got to get the talent. I won't go over my
and we go
classist issues with people's concept of talent. But basically, if we fund people and make sure they have the resources they need so they can stay in the fight and finish the work, they will finish.
And we ain't gonna say nothing about the fact that, besides the fact that if you decide to join a fraternity or sorority that gives you the backing to think about that, that's how people. If you go to college and ain't nobody around you saying that, you ain't on, you're lost.
Yeah.
So, like in Pittsburgh, when they did the Pittsburgh Promise, I said to them, listen, everything you do getting these folks to college is dope. But if you know how you send a young black man or young black female from Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, or Harrisburg to a state college in Pennsylvania that's not Westchester, Cheney, when they go up there and the first time someone say something crazy to them, and they don't have no connections or relationships. There's nobody covering them, putting their arms around them. To your point, they got the money, they got the relationships. to really get through? Can they call somebody for more ramen noodles? That's what you're talking about. So when people say, well, people ain't graduating after they got the money from the Pittsburgh Promise, well, of course they're not. There's no connection. There's no relationships.
Right.
So to the Promise's credit, they started creating mentors because people figured it wasn't about that you got them there. It wasn't even about that you had the last in money. It was about that young person had never been to the middle of Pennsylvania. And so when they got to the middle of Pennsylvania and they was broke one night, they made bad decisions.
Yes, sir. And they were isolated.
They were isolated.
And the assumption that you would have access to the resources in terms of the social resources and the social capital, people that you can tag, people you can reach out to, people you feel comfortable, you feel safe to express and be like, yo, I have no food, I'm cold, my coat is not sufficient, it says snowed 6 inches, and I'm in the middle of a valley in the state that I didn't realize was as big as it is.
Again, the biggest indicator if you're going to go is if someone else went. Do they understand what to give you, how to take care of you? If they've never been there, they don't understand.
Yeah.
It ain't that other stuff we talk about.
All right. Do you think and I brought up ruin porn because I feel like there's a conflict, in the concept of respectability politics, and I feel like there's a relationship between these two issues to me, and I have a personal challenge with respectability politics because I feel like I hear people use it in a whole lot of different ways that I'm not 100% sure what we're talking about, right? So there's that, and then I feel like there's a relationship between where people sit in the concept of ruin porn. Because like I said, from people who do not have to experience ruin, identifying or speaking to ruin feels like almost like an authentication, right? They go like, yeah, man, you know how we do it. We put the cooler.
We in the hood or they listening to music and a song come on or something crazy come on. They like, and everybody dancing and turned up. But you're not going back to that, right? You're not going back to that when it happens. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't define black people. Mm-hmm. Black people have had a lot of different definitions. It ain't all urban. Right. And it ain't all poor.
Yes, sir.
So we don't have to define ourselves explicitly by that.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, especially in this day and time with our music, a lot of times people do. And the thing is, when that song come on and it's super lit, but then the respectability politics come in and say you ratchet. That person's ghetto. That person's ratchet.
Yeah.
He hood. Right? He too hood. So which ones do we like? Do we like when the rappers say this stuff? Do we like when he say, you know what I'm saying, I got my gun on me, what you want to do? Or do we don't like it when someone say he too hood? Well, what do you want somebody to be?
Right.
You want to be respectable? Or you want to be hood? And that, I mean, in the respectability politics goes back to NAACP and the Urban League. I think we built about this. The whole thing that the Urban League in particular, NAACP too, the whole thing that when they would show up when everybody got off the trains with chicken and shoes and instructions on how to act.
Yeah, when you first coming north.
Yeah, when you got north, they gave you some fried chicken and a biscuit. So we still love 3 wings and a biscuit. Yeah. To this day.
3 wings and biscuits.
3 wings and a biscuit is good.
Eat chickens.
Listen, if you got 3 chicken, you got 3 seitan tenders and a vegan biscuit, please bring it over.
Bring that through for my man. You can bring me the regular wings.
No, he'll take the wings. I need them 3 seitan joints. You know what I mean? Bring them things through for me. Yes, I got you.
Yes, sir. You know what I mean? And then there's because as I feel like almost there's a, and I wonder, and this, I think this is almost, to me, circles back to integrity. Is there something to the idea, like, if I was straight up with you, right, when you coming off the train and say, look, there's stuff that you don't know about subsisting in this space. As your brother, as your sister, as you coming off this train, I'm going to let you know what we know or how we try to get by, how we try to make it given the constraints of the circumstance we in. I'm going to try to be straight up front with you. That's why we going to tell you this stuff. as opposed to I'm just gonna give you the chicken and biscuits. I'm gonna start telling you some stuff, and I ain't gonna give you no context, right? Is there something there where we can make sure that we prepare someone so they don't have to suffer an indignity, right? That they don't have to for their own good versus them creating an indignity for me, right? I think that's the challenge I see in there.
That's authenticity, man. Because I'm gonna be real, we got to stop this drive to the bottom, and a lot of nonprofit groups do this too. I ain't bombing on nonprofits tonight, but Mugs Black, we got to get somebody who went to jail to talk to people that went to jail.
Yeah.
At some juncture, I just got to be able to tell you authentically you shouldn't go to jail. And if I can't enumerate all the reasons you shouldn't go to jail, I don't know what I'm going to tell you, because I just told you all the reasons you should go to jail. I can't, and especially now to my point about this whole, your old head is 3 years older than you. By the time you get a dude that's 10, 15 years older than you and he just came back from jail, you don't believe him anyway. Mm-hmm. He's 30, you're 15. Y'all gangs ain't the same. Y'all don't call him the same things. He's broke. You have money. In a lot of towns in the city, mugs be like, oh, he came home, he's broke.
Right. What he know?
What do I care about listening to him? He failed. Not only did he go to jail, he went to jail and then come home with no money.
Yeah.
So explain to me, while I'm listening to you, you was the most gangster dude in the world. But again, my old head is 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
I'm 15. My old head 18. He got the pack. I'm not listening to him. So to your point about this thing of what do we tell people, we got to get past this thing that the only way you can tell somebody something is if you did it. That's a trap.
Yeah. I feel you.
The only way we say, who can talk to somebody that been to jail? Ooh, somebody who went to jail. Well, how long did they go to jail? 1 year, 2 years? No, we need 15 years. They don't care about him.
Right.
That's the secret.
Yeah. And I think to me, and I deal in this space when we talked about, people with lived experience. But the other thing is, like, it's not just that you have lived experience, it's that you also have some understanding and some development that you've done that you can turn what you've experienced into something that you can teach. And then you also have some understanding in terms of trust and integrity about who you are and how you operate, that the people that we serve can feel.
And I want to say I honor lived experience, but I think we've created this model in black communities and in Latinx communities of the only person that can speak to dudes that's in the street is other guys that used to be in the street.
Right.
But the world has changed since they was a lot of times in the street.
Yeah. And it goes to me, I always think about, in what we walk and we talk. Truth is the truth, regardless who tell you. If your 10-year-old nephew tell you, yo, you should stop going to jail, he was right. Whether you listen to him or not, whether you understood his motivation or not, he was right. He told the truth. You may not have been witness to it. You may have thought, man, he a kid. He don't know what he talk about. Truth is the truth.
If someone has explained to you that at some point you're going to be somewhere and take a shower, and the idea that you took a shower by yourself will be over, there will be someone else in there taking a shower, and you got to wear Timbs,
right?
Because you don't want to put your feet in any way on the what's the name that you got to fight and wear underwear when you take a shower. All I would need to ever hear is that.
Yes, sir. Right, and it's to me it's a very dangerous seed that the assumption that people who may not have lived your particular experience, and I can empathize with the reality that you may not experience many people who care about what's happened to you, right? Being in this type of work as a direct service provider for a long time, and I tell this people every time I get a chance, a lot of the young people that I've worked with have either been victims, right, or someone in their family has been hurt, and nobody cared. Right? Nobody said nothing to them. Nobody came to look for them. when their family member was hurt, whether their family member was right or wrong. They were hurt when they lost their family member, and nobody said nothing, right? And so then later you circle back and you tell that young person, basically, you being hurt doesn't matter, but we are concerned about who you may hurt, which is sort of like, man, I don't care about none of y'all.
Which is go back to my systems thing. Systems have conspired to not do the thing that was actually the healthiest for that young person. You got hurt, nobody came back, but now we care because you're going to hurt somebody else.
Right. We don't care about, again, we don't really care about you. We care about what you might do.
We don't care the fact that you dealt with a pain that, again, from like the PTSD, the black experience, or any poor experience, not just ours. Like, when you get comfortable when somebody dies, and the first thing we do is just put a T-shirt on, right? Or the first thing we do is go buy bottles of Henny. Like, I respect all the things when everybody put the shrines out and everything, and the bunny rabbits and the bottles of Hennessy. But all that meant is that we drowned our pain in multiple bottles of alcohol. Yeah. Which I have never found to actually solve the situation. Yeah. Because I woke up the next day with pain and I still had pain.
Yeah. You still
right?
hurt.
And so you allow the youngin to do that because that's the internal cultural context. And again, who's the OG saying, "Come on, man, come on, let's go take a walk. You know, let's go talk to my man. You can get this stuff out."
Yeah. Where's the link? We gotta build that linkage where you go
in a natural way.
Yeah.
Because there ain't gotta be somebody just sitting at the thing with a tight shirt on that don't fit, saying, "Hey, brother, you want to talk about this?" Is somebody in your family, someone on your set, that when you ready to go get the strap and go get busy, they can say, "Listen, man, talk to me. Come here. Now talk to my man. I trust him. I vouch for him. He may not be from your experience.
Right.
He may not be super, you know what I'm saying, super lit. Mm-hmm. He's a good guy or that's a good woman." Mm-hmm. And let that person talk. That's you did them again. When institutions don't work for us, we have to create institutions for ourselves that act in our benefit.
That's it.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right.
So that All
right. Man, that's a heavy gray matter right there. So I'm going to transition this because we had about an hour. It's probably a good time to start moving towards a close. Can you give us? I mean, I'm not even going to roll into that. I'm talking about our friend from Canada and I don't know where. I guess he's from Virginia.
Who?
Pusha T.
Yeah.
Drake situation.
Oh yeah.
And we're gonna leave it alone unless you got something salient that you feel that needs to be said about
the Pusha T and Drake situation.
Yeah.
So there's so much latent and so much latent in that situation. One, the idea that a person does not have to write their own rhymes in hip hop. Now, given that some of the first hip hop stuff started with someone not writing their own rhymes. Big, Casanova.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Grandmaster Caz and Big Bang Hank. So we know it started from the very beginning of Muggs not writing their own rhymes.
Yes, sir.
But the idea that you could be really famous, and we know and we heard the reference tracks to Drake, and then we just act like it didn't happen. Yeah. And then the excuses people give while he's famous. That is a non-excuse for the reason he doesn't write his raps. And you've empowered this guy to act like this is okay. Then number two, and here's what thing was latent with Meek. Not just because I'm from Philly, but it's real. Meek said, "You don't write your rhymes." He responded, "Was you on your girl's tour?" Okay. He told you didn't write your raps. He told you on your girl's tour, but the whole time we in situations we be like respect women for doing their thing and handling business. But you told him he was on the girl's tour.
Right. And that, somehow that went right over a lot of people. They just said, "Oh, we still love Drake."
Right. We still love Drake. So y'all love this guy for being super sensitive, but that was his whole premise. You on your girls tour.
Yeah, it's tough.
Right? A guy that regardless got street credibility. But y'all don't, that doesn't matter. So that's when I knew hip hop didn't matter. It was a circus. Well, I've been knew it was a circus.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now Push, you argue with what he say, how he said. He sent a shot at homie for the very same reason. You don't write your raps. We're honoring your artistic stuff. I listen to Drake stuff, especially when it's R&B music.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong.
Yeah. I like them R&B songs.
But Push said it. Then Drake came out, and his answer to Pusha T, was essentially, you didn't sell as many drugs as you said you did, and the guy that produces your songs got more problems than you. Okay. And then you mentioned this man's fiance, which, as the internet say, don't never mention a dude is 40 years old and got box braids. You should never mention his name anyway. You shouldn't even argue with no dude that's 40 years old got box braids. Because obviously he doesn't care what none of y'all think.
Indeed.
He's from Virginia. You shouldn't care what none of them guys. Them guys is different guys. You shouldn't care. You shouldn't have messed with him.
Yeah.
So then he in turn came out and did a full hip hop move.
Yeah.
And like we talked about today, he went full Yana Von Zon on him. You were hiding a child. Now, for those men who respect fatherhood, because I don't know if he was in a relationship with the young lady in question. That's not my business.
Yeah. I hear you.
You have a child that you were going to put on a press run. You know what I mean? There was misogyny all throughout this, so I ain't getting into that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But what it did was it framed the situation at Drake. And then with the whole blackface, like Pusha T said, when did you get involved with black issues, Drake? So in 2007, you was protesting black people having roles. But ever since you got famous, you never said Black Lives Matter. You never helped criminal justice reform. You ain't never did what Hove has done.
Well, he from Canada.
Well, then you got to make a decision. If you're from Canada, you can't do blackface.
Yes, sir. You know, he's like, I don't know what's going on in America. What's going on over there? Yeah.
I'm from the 6.
Yeah.
Well, then leave blackface alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so all I'll say about it is, again, no matter a lot of people feel some sort of way about where Pusha went on it, but it go back to street rules. That's your child. You acknowledge it when it happened, no matter what the relationship is. We're working on it.
Yeah.
I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I'm taking care of my child.
Yeah. It's your child. You
That's
need to
your
show
child.
up. You need to show up.
Straight up. I'm not your superwoman, as Karen Weiss. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Word up. So I want to leave, close us out on some strengths, man. What's something, can you just give me something that you feel feels very empowering or aligning that's going on in, you know, either a good word, good book, good something you heard recently, whatever.
I'm going to say, given my role in government and politics, I think the amount of progressive black mayors that have been out recently are really important, from Vi Lyles in Charlotte to Sister in New Orleans to Ras Baraka to the brother Randall Woodfin in Birmingham, to brother Chokwe Antar Lumumba in Jackson, Mississippi. I think that's a really interesting thing. Like black mayors that are progressive. Not just black mayors for the sake of being black, but black mayors who are progressive, have a progressive interest, and have to balance out the role of doing for people in a strong government with the role of how capital flows in to benefit people's lives.
All right.
I think that's a great trend, and it's not just a male trend or it's a black trend of progressive folks getting elected, especially as executives in cities.
All right. I think, and I thank you for sharing that, because I think, especially in the light of our current kind of political tone, it's easy to cater to despair and not look to, where are folks trying to approach this and maybe making strides in different ways.
So Tip O'Neill famously said all politics are local, right? And then for a minute, people thought all politics were national. And then now we're back to all politics are local. Because the reality of it is whatever's going on nationally, and this ain't just with the president per se, that's a mess. And most of our state governments are also a mess because of the balance between urban and rural, right? So whether it's Portland, right, whether it's Pittsburgh and Philadelphia versus the rest of the state of Pennsylvania, whether it's what's going on in the state of New York, Illinois, doesn't matter. The urban-rural divide that now has broken into a party divide has rendered most state governments impotent. So now, good things are going to happen is going to be on a local and county level. And we got local and county things that are happening that are really good. But you got to find them places.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, I ain't going to hold us too much longer.
Can I just say this?
Yes, sir.
Listen, man, I said I started for it. My son said we're all good speakers. Like, this podcast is an honor to be on because, to use the street kind of terms, like you got this podcast out the mud and you be talking to a lot of different people and having a lot of different impact. And I just want to say to all sponsors who are listening, like, y'all got to really get that money up because the price is going to go up soon. Man, you know what I'm saying? As your old head is serious because no one's talking about the role of these principles and values, no matter what I don't care if we're talking about coffee, we're talking about urbanism, I don't care what we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Like, this is the one that's doing it. So it's an honor as your brother to be able to be on your podcast.
All right. Well, thank you.
You know what I'm saying? And be able to talk to people that listen to you just off the break. So I just want to say thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you.
And sponsors.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm open to discussion. So,
sponsors, come on, don't be late.
Holla at me. I'm looking for alternative capital models.
Be early. Don't be late.
Yes,
I don't know if it's, I ain't going to say their names, but y'all know who I'm talking about. The people that sponsor the mother thing. Come on, y'all. Giving y'all no extra credibility.
Yeah, we out here. Indeed. So, well, I ain't gonna hold you, Almighty. We're gonna continue the rest of our travels this weekend and in the future as well. I thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
and listen, I'm gonna give a shameless plug just because Chef sitting there.
Yeah.
10 minutes of knowledge.
Yeah.
It's fully lit.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
You might hear me on there soon.
Yeah, listen. You never know. Great things could happen.
Yeah, anything. With that, I'm gonna say peace. Peace to the God. Thank you for joining me.
Thank y'all. Peace. Thank y'all for listening. And keep listening and tell your people and tell your family and friends about Ask Your Old Head. Peace.
That's right. Share, rate, subscribe, all that. Use the internet. This has been the Ask Your Old Head podcast with Justice Raji. Thank you for listening. Peace.
Peace.
This has been the Ask Your Old Head podcast with Justice Raji. Thank you again to my guest, I'm Majestic. Thank you to my nephew. Thank you to you, the listener, for tuning in. Please share. If you listen on iTunes, rate, subscribe. If you listen on any of the other means by which you can connect with the podcast, please use the requisite similar button and share it with your friends and tune in. I'm hoping to bring you many more episodes, including some new wrinkles to what I'm doing creatively coming through this summer. So thank you for listening. You can find me on Twitter at JUST_IFE. So that's JUST_IFE. You can also search for the Ask Your Whole Head podcast community page on Facebook. And generally, we're available on all other formats. So I hope you're connecting and enjoying. If if you'd like to be involved with the show or work with me, feel free to reach out to me through any of those mediums, and we'll see what we can do. In all things, I appreciate you for listening, and live, learn, teach.